Now I've been straightening this section of panel up and cleaning it up, but still got a few bends in it that I've got to knock out. But before I finish doing that, I've actually got to weld these pieces up. There's this cut that they've put in there for some reason, and this one where they snipped that would look like thin snips. Now I've opened up the gap a little bit, or the width of that blade there, roughly the width of the blade. Welding process I'm using is called stitch welding. Not a continuous weld, I'll just put little bits of weld in there as I go, and then eventually join those welds up. It takes a while, and the reason it takes a while is I don't want too much heat going into the panel. Too much heat distorts the panel even more, so to keep the heat down, it's a slow process. So it will take some time to actually weld these little bits up. If you rush at it, you'll end up with a lot of distortion, and you're spending twice as much time trying to get the distortion out. Using a MIG welder, so anyone that's got a TIG welder, I guess you'll do it slightly different. I have a MIG at my disposal, so that's what I'm using. If you want to know how to weld and stitch weld, there's plenty of sites on the internet that can show you how to do that, so I'm not going to explain too much of what I'm doing. I'm just going to go ahead and try and get that section welded up. I finished cleaning up the weld just a little bit more after I've done a bit of panel beating. Could probably go a little bit more. The final finish in these areas, I use this little linisher, and it gets into the tight spots and enables me to clean the weld up a bit more. It doesn't need to be cleaned up much more. Could probably knock that section out a little bit more to be able to flatten that, but I think it's pretty close to what it needs to be. What I'm doing now is making the pattern for the repair section. Got the paper in place. Well, first of all I put the floor properly in place. Actually got the engine frame in, bolted that up to make sure everything is exactly right. And that now means that I know the exact position of the floor here. This piece of paper I've just pushed up level with the floor. You can't see that in there. I haven't actually put the flange on, so I've actually got to add 15mm to the top edge here to get the flange. So I've already written that on the little template here, and plus 15 there. These magnets I find are pretty good. These are rare earth magnets. Hold the paper in place while you're doing it. This line here is where the curve starts. So I'll put a rough pencil mark where that is, so that'll help me when I fabricate. The top end of this panel here doesn't exist, but I know it's got to line up with the edge of the floor up there, if you can see that. So I've actually punctured the paper there. This mark here, you'll find that when you make these patterns, it's sometimes easier, instead of trying to draw a line along the edge there, you use the dirty finger technique, and all you do is rub your finger down the edge and it will leave a mark on the paper where the dirt is. Now I can't do that all the way up because there's no panel in there, it's rusted out. But I know that that line there has to line up with that mark up there, so that's why that's there. On the back edge, that folds down around the corner so the side of the transmission can be welded into place. Now there's not much of that left either, but I'll put the dirty finger on that so I know it goes up that wide, and I can link that up to the top of the page. So that's how you make the pattern up. Got the pattern for this one here, so that's already done. That's over in the workshop. So now I've got the pattern for this, so I can actually go over and start fabricating. Right, this is where I do my actual fabrication. These particular repair sections won't take anything complex in terms of tools. I use these templates or pattern to cut out the metal, which I've done. I transfer the information off the pattern onto the metal. And this is the one I've just got to fold. Now, I've marked this section here goes up, that bit there goes down, this goes up. If you don't do that, when you get here and you're not near the car, you can quite easily bend things the wrong way. The other thing you need to be careful of when you're bending things is to do things in the right sequence. So this is the flange. Now if I bent that and that was up, I'd probably have difficulty getting some of these other things in place to bend. So I've decided I'll do this bend first. Okay, I'll just put it in. I've got to do this one comes up, but it's only a short section. It should fit in the vise. With all these things you need to improvise. Okay, that's that one. The only bit I've got to fold is this one down. Oh, sorry, I've got to do that flange too. Alright, well. Now, that's the basic shape. A little bit more to do on that. But before I do any more, what I need to do is to get that into the vehicle and see where I need to adjust. But that's how you fabricate. Most of the time, because a fair bit of time doing that, but most of the time now is adjusting this so it fits where it actually has to go into the car. So that one's done. This other one, a couple of simple folds, flange at the top and a flange into the transmission tunnel area, but a curve in here. Now I'll just look at what I've got available to shape that curve. So I'll just turn this video off and look for something. Now I've already put the folds on the panel. I've now got to have this section curve around. Now to do that will involve stretching this flange here and then pulling this around, and some of that is just done with a curve. It will just be done by pushing it down onto a surface like the edge of the rail there, which is curved. So it's already got a slight curve in it. But if I put it into this stretcher, it will curve. You can see that maybe the panel's starting to curve. So this is going to be a slow process. You just have to be patient. You've got the general idea. It's a slow process of adjustment. I've got a rough curve there. I need to go and see if that's anywhere near the right shape, and then what I'll be doing is going back to the car and then reshaping, putting more curve or taking some of the curve out. But you can see that the panel is starting to curve. It may not be curved enough, I don't know, I'll have to look when I go over. So that's how you do it. As I say, it will take quite some time to finish that off. And I'm not going to film the whole process, it's just more of the same. Just keep adjusting, keep tapping, keep trying to force the shape around something like that. I probably need to clamp that on to get the strength into it. Strength in my hands. So I've got a gradual curve there, so it's coming along. So that's how, and I'll show you when I get close to finishing it off. Now it's taken about another hour of adjustment to get the shape right. It's actually more curved on the bottom than I thought. So it's a shallower curve on the top, deeper curve on the bottom. So I've managed to do that by various things, bending it against the rotisserie frame, but the final adjustment I was able to make just with this piece of steel. I think it's an old bearing of some sort. With that, gently tapping that against both the shoe last here, which has got a bit of a curve in that. Just gently tapping that around to stretch that metal into the right shape. And then finishing it off on a block of wood on this. This is what I actually use to form the shaped sections at the end of the transmission tunnel on the right hand side of the car. So putting it over the gap and then gently tapping it to get the right curve. Now it does fit. I've just checked that then. There's a few ripples in the panel which I'd like to take out. Probably don't have to because it's not seen, but I will. And the way I'll do that is just to mount this pipe in the vise and then gently planish around to take any little irregular bumps out of the curve. Now there are a few there, so it won't take much to finish. As I say, you don't have to because it's never going to be sand. It's going to be covered in upholstery on the inside and it'll have a gearbox up against it on the outside, so anyway, it doesn't matter. I like to finish it as best I can. I had to put a little bit more stretch around here because I originally thought it was straight all the way along there, but it's not. It's gradually curved. So this now fits the curve in the floor. Just got to bend that down a little bit. I'm worried about that at this stage because I'm not ready to put the inner panel on. But that is now very close to being right, apart from just a little bit of finishing, which I'm not going to video. It's just more of the same, but a long process. I say an hour to adjust that. Now I haven't adjusted this one yet. That'll be the next one. But this is straight fold, so that shouldn't be as difficult. So that's how you fabricate. A lot of hard work, simple tools, basically anything you can get hold of to stretch or fold the metal to the right shape. Doesn't matter what it is. As the old shoe lasts, have got nice curves. A little bit rough. A professional wouldn't use anything that rough because they're looking at finishing top panels, ones that are seen, and their work is brilliant. I'll put reference at the end of the video of a metal worker that I quite often watch, and he's currently actually manufacturing an E-type bonnet out of aluminium. Now he's excellent. He's got a whole range of videos. He does a lot of things by hand just to show what can be done, and obviously he has other equipment which I think, as he says himself, just makes the process quicker. You can still achieve similar results just by hand. It just takes a lot longer. That's the fabrication. The fitting, final fitting ready for welding. I'll show how I do that on these. Now it's taken me almost 2 hours to get to the stage of being able to weld this panel in. What I've been doing is doing the fine tuning on the fit. I've got to leave a gap between the panels so I can stitch weld this in. If I don't do that, the panels will close up and I'll get a lot of distortion. So it's a long process. Things go up, put them down, and you gradually get a better an even gap between the two panels. Now the way I actually trim them off is I use the cutting blade, or the edge of the cutting blade, just to put along the edges of that and trim it down bit by bit. I use this as a grinder rather than a cutter. So I think I've got it right. Still not quite clamped in place. I need to get some more clamps, but that's where it will go. Now, it's not going to be easy to weld because of where it is. We've got a lot of obstructions in the way. So what I'll do is that I'll tack it in place, put a few welds, to make sure it's in the right position. Then it will be easier to weld from the other side. So that means taking all of this off again, the floor off, the steel out, so I can actually get to the other side and weld that in. So that's what I'm about to do. So I'll tack this first. Well, I've turned the car on its side to be able to weld on this side of the panel. Now the stitches the initial stitches to hold it have come through from the other side, so that's a good penetration. What I've now got to do is to keep stitching that across, which I'll do in a minute, making sure that the panels are on the same plane. Now what I mean is that at the moment the panel on the other side there is slightly high, so what I've got to do is get that in there and bend that down. I can do that with either this blade or with a hammer and a dolly on the other side. For fine adjustments, what I use these magnets, and if I can get the blade in to get the right amount of pressure, I can sometimes get that back onto the magnet and the magnet will hold it. Let's say I'll continue to stitch that. If you don't get the panel even, you won't get the finish. The finish will be uneven as well. But anyway, I'll continue to stitch weld that, join each of those welds together, making sure we don't overheat the panel. So I'll put a couple of welds next to that, and then I'll probably go to this end, put a few welds, and then down this end put a few welds, wait till it cools off, maybe use a little bit of air, not directly on it because I don't want the panel to shrink, until I've got a continuous run of welds. So it's not a complete continuous weld, it's stitched together. Once I've got all the stitches in place, I'll then show you how I knock that down, and so I'll come back. Now I've completed the stitch weld on this. The next thing I do is to knock down the tops of those welds. And I do that using the air grinder from the side. I'll knock that down progressively till I get that almost flat. I've got to do that both sides of the panel, by the way, because underneath there's a similar run of weld like that, so that's got to be knocked down. That will at least let me know whether that's a complete weld. I'll see that once I've knocked that down, and it'll also enable me to address any distortion in the panel. So I'll just do that now. I won't film all of that, but I'll just show you a little bit of what I'm doing. Now I've knocked most of that weld down. It's still not flush. What I do when I get it to that stage, just change the action of the grinder. I'll just put my earmuffs back on. Now the advantage of this tool is that I can regulate the speed, and that's what I do when I get down a fair way, so I'll change the action of it. Now I've finished grinding all of that down. Still not flush. Now I've finished grinding or sanding that down with this little belt sander, I guess you call it, or linisher, 10mm wide, and I'll go along and just get it a little bit smoother. There's a couple of distortions in the panel I need to tap out, but I'll do that once I've got this a little flatter. Alright, what I've been able to do is to straighten this panel up a bit more, which I'll do with just some simple hammers and a dolly behind the panel. Now this panel is straightened as much as I need to straighten it. Probably could do a little bit more in there. Maybe I'll just tap that up slightly. Doesn't really matter, but I might do that after the video. A little bit to knock down on the linisher there. I didn't feel that before, so I'll just do that now. Not that it's needed on this panel, but to finish it further, is my favourite grinder. This time I swap over an 80 grit pad. And what you can do if you really want to finish the weld drop, you can use it. Now that will show up other imperfections which you could then go and tap that. That's probably still fractionally high, that's a little bit low. I might tap those up. But all in all, that's finished. So it's a lot of work. Using lots of different tools. The extent of the finish depends on where the panel is. And in terms of these panels, it's probably not necessary. But I don't like leaving things rough. The repair section to this side of the bulkhead is pretty much complete. I could probably clean up the weld a bit more in there. I might put a few more spots in there just to close it up a bit more and finish it off a bit better, but it's not too bad. This one's turned out quite well. This one took a long time to fit, much quicker to fabricate, but fitting it took a long time, and to get the required gap between the existing panel and the repair section so I could weld it. But apart from that, it's in place. The fit is pretty good on the floor. This is the other side of the repair sections, where I've panel beaded all this. That's pretty straight now. The new section in there, the new section down the bottom here. It's a bit over length there. I've yet to trim that off. I'll trim that off against the bulkhead closing panel here. I haven't put that in yet, so that's a simple cut. Everything seems to line up well on the floor, down the bottom here, so everything should be fine.